this is my review on Captain America Civil War, the Imax enhanced version. That I watched on Disney Plus because the IMAX enhanced version is exclusively available on Disney Plus. Uh, so those who don't know what the IMAX enhanced version is compared to the theatrical worldwide release of Civil War, the third installment in the Captain America franchise, also the third Avengers movie before the official title Third Avengers movie Infinity War came out. So yeah, it's also Avengers movie besides Captain America movie. So yeah, so with the IMAX enhanced versions, it basically fixes the visual ugly look with the Captain America Civil War movie, and in fact, it does that with all the Marvel movies that I come to realize that for each one I viewed in the IMAX Enhanced on Disney Plus. You can only find the IMAX Enhanced movies for Marvel's movies only on Disney Plus so far. They haven't released it worldwide yet. It's exclusively for Disney Plus thing, you know? And interesting thing is, what this movie does is really fix the fucked up color temperature on the screen and make it just in the right spot in every shot. It finds a sweet spot in every shot, including the daytimes, which were the worst. If you pay attention to these things, you know the daytimes are usually the brightest. The daytimes are usually the worst, but for some reason, now the daytime's just as good as the night scenes, or the scenes with little lighting. Even those dark scenes like that look better. The night scenes look even better. Look more darker, but with also more potent, stronger color. But which also with stronger shadowing, you know, to make it like the colors stand out more, you know. And the same goes for the daytime things. The color is stronger because the shadows stand out in every shot of the frame throughout this movie. And so also this movie, what IMAX Enhanced is also known for is like basically doesn't crop the aspect ratio of the film that's on screen, using as in doesn't cut off the top and bottom of the scenes that were shot in full screen. And in fact, interesting thing is there was this one settings of the scene of a certain scene that was shot in full screen throughout this entire movie, and and that would be the airport scene where all the Avengers fight each other. And the rest of the movie, after that scene, after the whole Avengers fight ends, it goes back to a widescreen, and the rest of the film is in widescreen shots. And you know this might be the reason why Infinity War and also Endgame look so bad in theaters, because those two movies the entire film was shot in a full screen. It was a full screen lens, and with lenses that could pick up that shoot stuff in full screen. You know, those two movies. Well, this movie was just shot. Majority of it was just shot in widescreen, except for one airport scene. But however, once you crop that, once you cut off the top and bottom, like I've said this before in my past videos, that if you convert something from full screen to widescreen, it's going to affect every frame, even if it's just one scene. And this kind of proves my point. This one scene that got converted from full screen to widescreen really did affect the movie a big way, as in it made the color look ugly as hell and looked all mushed together and looked faded all at once, and it just didn't look right. and therefore for the worldwide releases of this movie before of these movies that I listed off for the movies before the IMAX enhanced version of these movies I saw, and yes, and also because the color was so faded for all three of these movies, Infinity War, Endgame, and Civil War, and because of that, the colors were so faded. It was hard to make out which characters are which, and why they wearing these comic book looking costumes. And if we can't really make out what the color looks like of the, I mean, it just looks stupid. It looked stupid. It looked not believable at all. It had me hard time for me to give in to the illusion of that this is a fantasy movie and it takes place in the world of comics when the color is not even there, like it is in comics and cartoons for comic book heroes, you know. But for the IMAX enhanced movies, the color is there. I think it has something to do with them fixing the films, converting the films back to full screen, the ones they shot in full screen, and that's why the color looks good. Because I know that's what happen. I know that this happens a lot of times, much more than you would think. And you know how DC, for the DCEU universe versus the Marvel MCU universe, has more vivid colors worldwide versus Marvel, how Marvel looks more faded and dull looking. Well, there's a reason why. See, here's the thing. I noticed those films all got cropped for widescreen because all the DC films, even going back to Man of Steel, the day Man of Steel was shot with some or a whole movie was shot with the lens that makes that you can see the full top and bottom and it's full screen. So it could be the whole movie or one scene or a certain scene from the movie, going back to Man of Steel days. So I'm talking about the whole DCEU universe, and going back to the first Iron Man film from 2008. If you pay attention enough, you notice how DC looks like they have too much color in their movies versus Marvel. Like their colors looks like a little smushed together, like it looks too highlighted. It looks too. I'd rather have that than I have no color, have like bare looking color, but it still doesn't look like quite right because you notice how DC, like the color for DC movies going since Batman v Superman after Man of Steel, is that their color looks, well, kind of cartoonish and silly looking, besides smushed together. Actually, that's, I tell you right, you have this problem since Wonder Woman movie from 2017, where the color's very cartoonish and overly exaggerated. It's okay if you want to exaggerate the color, but overly exaggerate, you get films looking. It looks like a really cheesy, stupid cartoon. The colors, like not the good kind though. The cheap, lazy kind is what DC often ends up looking like for their films. And while Marvel has a reverse effect, is that their color ends up looking very similar to if the texture of the color looks like sandpaper. It looks like faded sandpaper. The texture of the color that when you look on it, it looks like you're basically this getting shown worn out sandpaper and someone's just showing you it and think that's interesting when it's just boring. I mean, and the reason why, and this happens to both companies, DC and Marvel, when having the opposite effect, is outcome is because the films get every scene like gets converted to from full screen to widescreen, as in the edit to widescreen, in other words. And other words, the molded into a widescreen shot that was supposed to be a full screen shot, and you're missing a big chunk of the bottom and top. And now, some scenes or one scene or every scene can be throughout the entire film for any of their projects. But if you have, even if you do this, edit one scene from full screen to widescreen, and edit to full screen when it was from widescreen to widescreen when it was shot in full screen, it's going to affect the color in every frame of the film, and in other words, in every shot of every scene of the film. And you see, here's the thing, why Marvel looks the way they do, and why DC looks the way they do with the over-exaggerated colors. And to a point, they really shouldn't be that exaggerated. It looks kind of off. And I don't know why, but that's why, the reason why is because of the reason I just told you for both companies. And, this happens a lot with movies, more than you would think. Pretty much every movie goes through this now these days. It's been like this for years. It's been pretty much like this kind of thing. It's been like this since they started shooting stuff in widescreen. Kind of thing of it. It's when things start, like, you know. But I guess as technology advanced over time to make films better looking, as technology advances, I guess it can look worse and worse over time as technology advances, and the whole filmmaking process can become more complicated. It can also making widescreen look worse now these days than it did before, back when widescreen came out and it was just becoming new. Well, it's the public, you know, and I just know so yeah, I want to talk about that. And anyway, back to what DC. The thing is, why DC and Marvel look the way they do after the films get converted to widescreen with the color. It's because, okay, before they get converted to widescreen, DC uses more muted colors, while Marvel will use more organic looking brighter colors. Then the reverse will happen, and the muted colors will look more like brighter, vivid, exaggerated colors. The more muted they are. Whereas the more bright, exaggerated colors that are more natural and authentic looking will look the opposite. For effect, once the opposite outcome will happen for them once they get edited into widescreen after being shot in full screen and getting all the edited process for the movie and everything, and every shot being done to perfection. This type of widescreen get converted to widescreen. This to mess up all the colors in either way for either side. The colors are going to look mushed together. But then this happens with DC and also with Marvel, both companies. You just don't notice as much as often for DC because when they get converted to colors, the colors look more brighter, but they also look more phony. And the reason why that because it will kind of mess up the shadow because everything's all mushed together. All the colors and the shadow and the lighting are all mushed together, you know? And for Marvel has the same thing, except their colors are going to get really washed, going to really look really washed out, and look more like a faded colors. And it's sad because the reason why it's sad because that's not what the creators of the film meant to for any of these films to look like once they get converted to widescreen every shot. So yeah, it's just sad when you think about it. Yeah. This is also happening with the Harry Potter ones, films, and the Girls Trying Tattoo with one with Daniel Craig, the remake with Daniel Craig. And it's also happened pretty much with every film that gets shown in IMAX will have that effect. Like the reason why these, like when you say, like when they tell you see in an IMAX, the thing about IMAX is like it'll show you the colors where they were meant, where the makers want you to see the colors, and they'll show every shot that was shot in full screen the way they want you to see the film, or if every shot in full screen, they will show you that, But I think IMAX is the only thing that doesn't when you see films in IMAX, that seems to be like the only thing that does. That's the only movie company that doesn't want to convert or tamper with the screen and converting the screen to widescreen just to fit every shot and messing up the art and messing up which messes up the color, and which also messes up the shadows, which can make the shadows like more brighter and not as dark, which can mess up the whole look aesthetic of the film. The whole honestly look that the filmmaker is going for, and that's really just sad. And I really, I used to think it was the color grain that was a problem, but that's because I forgot what I learned about those two things colliding, and then I remembered this. So it's not the color green that's the problem with movie films and shows, and this happens with shows too. They don't suffer as much as often, and it's like it's sad that converting films and TV shows is still going on now. I say they should stop converting movies to widescreen and just stop that. I think they should stop editing movies to widescreen just to fit just so every frame looks identical, because it shouldn't look like that. Every shot should look unique, and every shot should capture your eye and wow you. And that's what the IMAX enhanced version of Civil War does. It was just when you watch it, view it, it feels like a completely different movie. Basically, it feels like we're having a completely different new viewing experience for the better. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the story now. Now the story is Bucky being brainwashed by Hydra as a Winter Soldier back in his Winter Soldier days before he retired from being a Winter Soldier and killer, and he takes out this old looking car. That's going to tie in for later in the film, and cut to years later, the Avengers are on a heist mission to take down Crossbow and his gang and stop them unleashing this experimental disease that the people are working on. It's not really clear what this file is. It's really unclear, but I guess some sort of disease or something that's dangerous. It's not really acknowledged what it is, So anyway, they save the day, but But then Crossbones blows himself up as the gang Cap's guy down by mentioning Bucky, and then Wanda saves Cap and holds the explosion until she can't hold the explosion anymore, and destroys half of the top of a building where people in, and Cap calls the fire. Cap's like tells Wilson's called the fire department. They need for fire department to do their job to rescue people and put out the fire. And so yeah, the Avengers kind of saved it, but they also kind of fucked it up, the mission. So yeah. So it's on news and everything's talking trash for the Avengers, and all the Avengers in one's taken really hard, and who's also known by her comic name, the Scarlet Witch. And Tony came up with this invention to cope with his issues as some sort of therapy device due to the loss of his, because he's still grieving with the loss of parents at a young age. So yeah. He brings the Secretary of State, who used to be General Ross, but now is now Secretary Ross. He's talking about how he discovers perspective due to some sort of heart attack and while playing golf, and it's like, yeah, it's not that really interesting of a story. It's like, anyway, and he brings this point up for example to tie into conversation about to have with the Avengers, and to convince them to sign this thing called the Sokovia Accord, which means they won't rely on they won't operate by their own rules. They'll operate by the government's rules, because everyone knows you can trust the government. But things always work well. So most of the all the Avengers, except for Wilson, who's Falcon, and Captain America, also known as Steve Rogers, signed the Sokovia Accord after discussing about it, and then they kind of split up, and Wanda's kept in the facility because she's not a U.S. citizen, and she's dangerous and people are afraid of her. So, and Captain America and Sam Wilson go rogue to try to get Barnes, also who used to be the Winter Soldier, because people are going to just not want to bring him in alive but dead. So they want to basically save his ass. And the other Avengers who signed the Kobe Accord are not allowed to do anything, or the ones that retired. Which the one that retired was Hawkeye. Yeah, so yeah, so what was I, oh yeah. So yeah, Captain America is now a fugitive, and so is Sam, because they interfered, and surprisingly, Bucky then got captured, and not captured, got captured, but then got gunned down. surprisingly. So, because that was the original plan, and that's why Captain Sam was going to interfere because they didn't want him to kill Bucky. Because Bucky's been framed for a sort of big explosion that's considered a terrorist act. Turns out it was Bucky, but he doesn't know who it was. Not nobody does, and Black Panther is trying to kill Bucky because he blames him for the death of his father because he was in the explosion and died in the explosion that Bucky's been framed for publicly. Well, right, on the news and everything. So, yeah. So, to make things worse than they could be, Tony has a solution to just try to get Captain America to sign Scoville, including Falcon. So, he doesn't have to get prosecuted and was sent to court and also in prison. So, Tony's trying to save Steve, but then he brings up what the supervillain was Wanda, and and he says he's going to get her out of that situation once if he just gets her signed. He needs to. I mean, he was looking to get that situation sorted out eventually. He said, but he says it'll take time.